Hello, welcome to American Dream, Latin Souls. I'm Daniel Ortiz, and today my guest is entrepreneur and inventor Armando Rositas. Armando, welcome to our program.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on your show, Daniel.
Armando, what I really like about your story is that in true entrepreneurial fashion, you took an incident that could have been a tragedy, and you created a business out of it. And as the inventor of the swimming buddy, which we'll discuss here shortly. So kudos for you for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
And before we get into your story, Armando, we ask every guest, what is your American dream and what does it mean to you?
Well, my American dream is that I succeed in getting the public to accept Swimming Buddy, that it would bring a new level of safety to a life vest, because that's what Swimming Buddy does. It attaches to a life vest.
Okay, so let's talk the big picture. What is the overall your American dream? As a Latino entrepreneur, you have a specific invention that you invented. You have a patent on this product.
Correct.
But tell me, just growing up, did you have an American dream, and what did that look like to you?
Oh, Lordy. When I was younger, I used to work in the muck fields with a lot of different people. A lot of our neighbors, Latinos, mostly Latinos. We had a few white people that worked in the fields with us. And
this is in Texas?
In Lansing, Michigan. In St. John's. I'm sorry, in St. John's, where I grew up, in St. John's, Michigan. And there's a lot of muck fields there in the area. And
now you're saying muck fields or mud fields?
Muck, M-U-C-K.
Okay, I've never heard of that,
yeah.
A muck field.
Yeah,
okay.
It's black dirt. It's it leaves quite a dust on you when you're in the fields.
Okay.
But I always dreamt that that's not what I always wanted to do. But it's our heritage. You know, my parents were both migrant workers. Both my parents always wanted us to do more and be more than.
So what was your dream growing up in those muck fields, working as a youth? What was your dream? Did you have a vision growing up?
I had a vision of, I really didn't know what it was going to be, but it was going to be doing something like I'm doing now, that I'm doing something for the public.
Okay, so you didn't have a specific vision, but it was general.
It was a general, I guess it was just a goal. My goal was to move forward, and our mother made us promise her that we would not quit school, because her grade level was only 3rd grade, as my father's. But she instilled in us, and my father did too, that there was always bigger and better things to do. But you had to listen. You had to listen and pay attention to what people were saying and grasp that, learn from it.
Okay, so we'll talk about the role your family and your upbringing played in your American dream. So let's fast forward to now. Okay. You are an inventor of a product called the Swimming Buddy.
Correct.
And my understanding is that this evolved, or this was created out of a near tragedy. Tell us that story of how this developed. What was happening?
I have a boat, and I was coming across a lake, and behind every boat is a wake. 2 jet skiers decided to jump my wake. They miscalculated. One jet ski hit the other and permanently disabled this young boy.
So they crashed?
They crashed.
Okay.
During the rescue, after I dropped off the 2 guys that were with me, they jumped in the water to help get the boy out of the water that was disabled. I turned around to get out of the way because there were a lot of traffic starting to mingle and watch and kind of get in the way, and I was trying to get out of the way. During that episode, when I was trying to get out of the way, there was a little boy that was involved in this jet ski accident that was riding on the back of one of these that was thrown into the water at impact. I nearly struck this little boy. Having 3 grandchildren myself, I immediately thought that there had to be more vision of people that were in the water.
So this little boy was in the water after the accident?
After the accident.
Okay, so
yes.
you were leaving the scene. This little kid is in the water, and you almost hit him.
Yes. There's so much, there was so much movement of the water because of all of the boats that were coming around that he was down in a little swell. Well, when I turned around and like I say, when I started to get out of the way, there he was. So I designed this for my grandchildren.
And is that a common, I mean, not a common occurrence, but are there accidents like that where people are in the water in boats or jet skis, just have no idea that they're in the water?
Yeah. Well, when that happened, kind of a light switch came on that, you know, like I say, that I felt I had to design something to make people, even pets, in the water more visible to boating operators. So I started researching the United States Coast Guard annual reports on accidents. And I found, well, in just May, they just came out with the new annual report, and it said that there was 30 people that were killed by being struck by boats, and there were 19 people that were killed being struck by propellers. That doesn't
nationwide.
include,
This is in lakes,
nationwide.
Lakes or the ocean, or just water sports in general.
And just recreational boating,
Okay.
and it didn't include.
So roughly 50 people a year are killed in these type of accidents.
Oh, then there was more than that, because I kind of concentrate on just those three, but it doesn't include the boating operators who are inexperienced, improper lookouts, operator inattention.
Okay, so how many people a year are killed?
There's like 500.
500 people a year, roughly, are killed.
I better back up a little bit. You know, I right off the top of my head, I don't remember.
But it's significant. It's in the hundreds.
It's a big number. It's a big number.
Okay, so you created this event, this product, to alleviate for safety reasons. So
Correct.
tell us about what this product does and
Well,
how you
it
came about it.
it's 19 inches long. It's 2.5 inches in diameter. On one end there's a little clip that just clips the standard life vest strap, and at the top there's a 1 inch.
I think we have some footage of it here, some pictures of here. So it sticks up on the back, and
pops
it's
up
bright
out of the
colored.
water. Yeah, it pops up out of the water. It works on a stick bobber concept, and that's why it only took me about 10 seconds to have this.
So you had an epiphany about this product when it came about?
I don't know. I guess.
Because this is an invention that came out of necessity, and
Correct.
I have this saying. My father used to be a carpenter, and custom cabinets, and where we live in New Mexico, we have adobe houses that are crooked, and he'd always have to invent these devices to make them fit. And I said, Dad, how did you come up with that? And he said, La necesidad. You know, the necessity is the mother of invention. So is that kind of your experience?
Correct. It was.
Well, you said you thought about your grandchildren in that situation.
Yeah.
So you had an emotional attachment or
Exactly.
emotional epiphany.
Exactly. And that's, you know, the last thing I'd ever want is to have my grandchildren put in that position where if they fell off their tube or if they fell off a jet ski or out of the boat, at least someone would have a chance to see them better when they were in the water.
Okay. So what kind of reception has this product received?
This has been taking, it's been, for me, it's been kind of slow. But I have done, I have presented this in front of the Michigan Senate Natural Resources Committee. I've presented this in front of many people at boat shows, where also there's the Coast Guard is usually at all these boat shows where they have, you know, along with the people in the Senate have said, because we can't advertise for you, because we cannot promote things for you, because we cannot endorse things for you, but don't quit on this. So with that in mind, that was one reason that I've not quit. But more importantly, it's seeing my grandchildren in the water.
Okay, so you're driven by your grandchildren, And this is one of the things I wanted to segue into now, is to talk about what role family plays in your entrepreneur and being a Latino entrepreneur. You know, I talk about in my book, the Latino values are faith, family, and frijoles. Frijoles is, of course, catch-all for culture, but family is always a big part of our business. So tell me, what role does family play in your career as an entrepreneur?
Well, today, sadly enough, today is 8 months ago my brother passed away. He had pancreatic cancer and he passed away. Before he got too sick, he and I were sitting talking, and he would say, you know, Armando, he said, you know, don't quit on swimming, buddy. He says, you know, I wish you the best of luck. Best of luck. He said, don't quit on it.
Well, you have to have faith as an entrepreneur. The entrepreneur path is not the easy path in life. We don't go into business because we get a guaranteed salary and benefits and retirement at the end of the day.
No.
And it's challenging, and yeah, don't quit. I mean, you cannot quit as an entrepreneur.
No.
I remember seeing a video with Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, and they were having a discussion, and somebody asked Bill Gates, about Stephen Jobs, you know, what does it take, what one thing would you advice would you give as an entrepreneur? And he says, you got to love it, because if you don't love it, you're going to be tempted to quit. And I want you is don't quit. I think there's that, growing up we heard this saying about Thomas Edison, who invented 10,000 ways not to invent the light bulb, and 10,000th one time, I guess, you know, eureka, the light bulb came. So persistence, right?
Persistence.
And does that come from your parents?
Oh, my parents, mercy. Yeah, like I say, you know, my parents both only went to the 3rd grade. My father was in World War II, and he was a combat engineer. He was a supervisor. His thing was that, like when he said, weed the garden, he meant pull every weed out of the garden. He was pretty strict in his way, but it was always about work.
So you had a strong work ethic.
We had a very strong work ethic. As I grew up, you know, it became more and more of just liking it. I like to work. I'm retired, but I'm not going to slow down. This is too important. Swimming buddy is too important. There's the opportunity to save someone's life.
And you know, the work ethic is embedded in the Latino culture, don't you think?
Yeah.
You know, during the debate in the politics, with this thing about illegal immigration, and you know, there's one party was trying to portray Latinos as being welfare and so forth, and you know, you don't see Latinos on the street corner with a sign saying, you know, give me some money. You know, we're too busy working, right?
Exactly.
And I remember growing up, in my family today, they don't necessarily care, you know, what you do. You know, it is important, but you know, as long as you're working, whether you're doing heart surgery or brain surgery or, you know, cutting weeds or mowing lawns, as long as you're working, you know, you're
exactly.
that's part of our culture.
And that was.
And that helps you as an entrepreneur. Would you agree?
Yes, because you work long hours when you're an entrepreneur.
Maybe this is why Latinos are starting businesses at a rate 4 times faster than the population at large, and Latina women, of course, 6 times. So our cultural values, I think, help that entrepreneurial spirit.
Well, I think finally we're coming out of our shells that our ideas can be accepted. That, you know, we don't have to just be the population that pulls weeds out of fields, that picks tomatoes out of fields, that we have ideas just like everybody else. And I think now that, you know, now that we're coming, I don't want to say coming out of the closet, but we're coming out of our own shells. It's kind of like a fluid concept that, you know, it means something different to everyone, and that everyone has a goal for themselves, and whether it's to become a businessman, to become wealthy, whether it's to be someone who rises from poverty, goes to college, does well.
You mentioned something about Latinos coming out of our shells. And, you know, the untold story is that we've been here for 500 years. And a lot of us have succeeded in business in the past, but because our cultural values are different from American traditional values, there'll never be a Latino Donald Trump. And by that I mean not his wealth, I mean his mouth. In our culture, it's considered bad manners to flaunt your wealth, is it not? You know, we're a humble culture.
Exactly.
You know, we work hard and we tend, and sometimes that can hurt us because sometimes, especially to succeed in America today, you need to stand out from the crowd. But our culture values is humility. You know, and Donald Trump, there would be not a Latino Donald Trump because he would be considered a sinvergüenza. Is that right?
Exactly. Oh my, oh my.
So there's that dynamic there with Latinos. Is yes, you know, we're hardworking, but we're humble at the same time, and you know, that's a dynamic that we just have to work with and are working through.
When I was working in the muck fields, see, I kind of graduated from being a water boy to working in the fields to working with the irrigation pipes. But while I was working in the fields, there was an old song that used to come on, and I always used to sing it. And Don Miguel, the supervisor, the field supervisor, he was very old then, and it was a blessing for me to be able to hear what he had to offer me for advice as far as, you know, working hard and why you work hard. That, you know, like you just always did it. You didn't question, why am I working so hard? You just did it. It was just what we did.
Right.
But I used to turn my hoe into a microphone, and I would start singing this song Down in the Boondocks. And it's about, you know, this kid who has a girlfriend, and he doesn't measure up to her. Her parents don't like him. He doesn't measure up to their standards. Well, maybe we always have had a different standard. But as you say, that there's no reason for us to have to flaunt anything. We are who we are, and it doesn't matter.
Right, yeah, Latinos, you know, again, we go back to that cultural value of humility, you know, be humble and not flaunting your wealth, not flaunting yourself, because, you know, that's, again, in our culture, it's bad manners. In American culture, you know, it's almost the exact opposite. If you're not strutting, you look at athletes, you know, and they do the dance in the end zone. And, you know, you have, you know, of course, we talked about Donald Trump, and there's others, of course. And, you know, that's just something as a culture we need to work on a little bit, I think, because, again, sometimes with all the mass media and all the content out there, we do have to stand out, especially in your business, to get your product known in the marketplace. You got to stand out a little bit. Yeah. So you have to, you know,
you have to sell.
You have to take that microphone and sing.
Exactly. And I did capture the audience. I mean, and it was fun. And Don Miguel always just say, "Bueno, ¿dónde está el payasito?" And he'd always call me his little clown. And so, and he would hear the song and he would start, you know, snapping his fingers. Well, everybody started kind of, you know, for as long as the song was on, that's, you know, and then the break was over, and then we went right back to work.
Okay.
But getting back to my brother, you know, for a second here, is that, you know, he told me, he says, you know, once you lost focus, and he was relating to, he used to be a boxer, and my brother was my mentor. I used to try to do everything that he used to do. Well, he got into boxing, so I got into boxing. And getting back to his statement that says, don't lose your focus. I lost focus once fighting for the state championship. And I was looking over the guy that I was fighting. I was looking over the top of his shoulder, looking at the police. This was way back in the late 60s, when there was a lot of problems with populations of different ethnicities. And I was looking over his shoulder, and I got hit between the eyes and knocked off balance. I lost the fight. But on the way home, and this was in Grand Rapids, Michigan, I said, I'm not going to lose next year. Next year I'm going to be a state champion. Well, I ended up being more than that. I was the most outstanding fighter of the whole championship. Right? And it was because I didn't lose focus. And swimming.
So you learned your lesson.
Exactly. You know, and sometimes that's what we do, is we learn our lessons. We're taught a lot of things.
Sure. Again, as entrepreneurs, we fail. You know, we fail. And if you talk about any entrepreneur who says he hasn't failed, I mean, to the T, they'll say, you know, a lot of them will say, I failed my way to success. We used the example of Edison with the 10,000 times, but even Steve Jobs failed in business. He was kicked out of his own company, Apple, that he founded. You know, and he started Next, and that didn't do so well either. So even the biggest among us fail. And do you think that that's an entrepreneurial trait that you just need to be able to, that's inside of us? Because American culture doesn't like failure. And a lot of people, they taste failure and then they're back to the safe job. So tell me what role that plays.
Well, I think, you know, I think that because I am Latino and because, like my father, he always used to, the way he was that if he was working on something, he always used to like to know how it ran. I mean, if it was already broke, there was no reason why not tear it apart and just look at it and then try and diagnose it like a doctor would on why it's not working. Right. Well, if a guy got into electronics or something like that, it would be something that he wouldn't be able to look at. But
so, what does failure play a role? But learning from failure.
His kind of failure was like, well, he was an alcoholic. My father was an alcoholic, and he became an alcoholic because of the war. But his failure was that if he couldn't get something to work, it made him mad. And he wanted to know why.
It drove him.
It drove him. It drove him to want to know why this isn't working. And he would always tell me, he said, well, you know, before you throw that away, take the nuts and bolts off of it because you may need them later. So it was always, and like for me, I'd learned from that, you know, failure comes. I failed in many things. I'm not perfect.
Well, and I want the audience and anybody, an entrepreneur out there to realize that, number one, if you failed, it's okay. Just because you fail doesn't mean you are a failure.
No.
Number two is that you can learn from those failures and turn it into a strength. And number three is, you know, you never fail until you quit, right?
That's right.
So that goes to the persistence that your brother was sharing with you, is don't quit, persist, and persist. And it's and this is why I think entrepreneurs are different from the rest of the population at large. I think maybe just a small 10%, you know, 15% of the population is. And so, do you think that entrepreneurial spirit, people are born with it, or can be created? You know,
I think people entrepreneurs have imagination. Entrepreneurs.
We see things that don't exist.
Exactly. We change the way we look at things because when we're done looking at things, the things we've been looking at have changed. And I've reworded that, you know, from a Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Well, that's quantum physics. You know, just observing something changes the observer and the observed. You can actually change that. You know, that there's a saying in quantum physics, is a particle or a wave? Well, the answer is yes, because observing a particle can change it to a wave, right?
Yeah. It's. I don't know what it is. I would almost dare say that I was born with it.
I believe entrepreneurs are born. It's just innate. It's your nature. Just, you know, like we're all born differently with different talents, and some people are just born entrepreneurial. They just, like I said, they have the vision. They see things, and ask why not. You know, like that can happen. Like with your swimming buddy. You saw an accident, rather than lament, oh, you know, I could have had a tragic accident, or why did so many people die? You saw something that can change that.
I could have drove away and said, "Wow, you know, that's sad. You know, that's too bad." But I didn't. I
and how many people today?
Yeah, I wanted to take this negative experience and
turn it into
make
something.
a positive come from it.
Okay. Well, that's great. Great for you. I mean, that's and because of your vision and your imagination, and you took action. It's going to save a lot of lives.
I hope so. I hope so. That's my dream. It's like I have a friend. Her name is Jamie Hope, and Rebecca Ware Robinson. Rebecca's a blogger, and Jamie Hope is an author, as you. And I did buy your book.
I saw that. Thank you.
And as Jamie, a young lady, you know, an entrepreneur, writing a book, she has visions, and Rebecca Ware Robinson, she's a blogger who believes in trying to bring to the attention of the public of the drownings, you know, children drowning. They both have visions. They both have dreams. As I was saying, you know, it's kind of like the filter or the fluid concept. You know, everybody sees it differently.
So are they taking action to see these dreams into? Because that's the other part. How many people have said a new invention comes on the market and say, "I thought of that. I thought of that." And I think ideas are in the ethers, and people tap into them. But who takes the action? It's the entrepreneur, right? Who takes the risk?
Yeah. Who's the one who shells out the money?
Who takes the risk?
And who's the one who asks your sister, "Hey, Olga, no tengo dinero."
And entrepreneurs funded, you know, by friends and family. So we're almost out of time. So one last question. You know, what advice, Armando, would you give to any budding entrepreneur out there who has an idea for business, maybe an invention? What advice would you give them?
Boy, you know, if you believe in it, you may stumble, but don't ever quit on it, because it's something that you believe in. You'll find yourself not quitting on what you believe in.
So you have to believe in.
You have to believe in it. You have to believe in it, and if you believe in it,
and never quit.
Your desire will be followed by motivation, or your motivation will be followed by desire. But boy, you just can't. You can't quit on it. You can't.
Okay.
You can't just
good advice.
Let it fall along the wayside, because if you believe in it, you'll go after it. Just don't quit. Just make sure you have a good business plan. Not that you won't change it, because I've changed mine 1,000 times.
So believe in it and don't quit. Very good.
Believe in it and don't quit.
Good.
Don't quit.
Good advice. Good
don't
advice.
Quit.
Armando, thank you very much for sharing your story and your American
Thank
dream with us.
Thank
American Dream Latin Souls. And I'd like to thank our audience for joining us on American Dream Latin Souls. And if you'd like to learn how to achieve your American dream without losing your Latin soul, you can buy my book at latinosuccess.com or even on Amazon. So thank you very much.